Hey everyone, welcome back and thanks for joining us on the discussion of the design of experiments. Jumping into our objective, we're asked to describe the characteristics of an experiment, which means we've got some vocabulary to lay out. The first one is an experiment, which is a controlled study conducted to determine the effect of varying one or more explanatory variables has on a response variable. Now within that we have the idea of a treatment, which is any combination of the values of the factors. Next we have an experimental unit. An experimental unit, also known as a subject, is a person, object, or some other well-defined item upon which a treatment is applied. Following that we have the control group. Now this serves as a baseline treatment that we use in order to compare other treatments to. Next we have a placebo. A placebo would be a fake medication such as a sugar tablet. It looks, tastes, and smells like the experimental medication, however there is no effect. The next idea would be that of blinding, which would be the non-disclosure of the treatment an experimental unit is receiving. Within blinding we have a couple subcategories. The first subcategory would be single blind, an experiment in which the subject does not know which treatment he or she is receiving. On the other hand, we have the idea of double blind, where we've got this experiment where neither the subject nor the researcher in contact with the experimental unit knows which treatment the experimental unit is receiving. So let's jump over to our example. We're asked to identify the characteristics of an experiment. From the problem itself, we're told the English department of a community college is considering adopting an online version of the freshman English course. To compare the new online course to the traditional course, a faculty member randomly splits one section of her English course. Half of the students receive the traditional course and the other half is given an online version. At the end of the semester, both groups will be given a test to determine which performed better. Looking at part A of the question, we're asked who are the experimental units? Referring back to the definition, remember experimental unit is a person, object, or some other well-defined item upon which a treatment is applied. So we're looking for any person where a treatment is applied. Remember, a treatment is any combination of values of the factors. So the experimental units are students in the class that were split in online versus traditional. Next, looking at part B, we were asked what are the treatments? Well, the treatments are the online and traditional approach to teaching. Sometimes this causes a bit of confusion since the traditional method of teaching would be kind of considered our control, but both of these are factors that have an influence on a response variable. On to part C then, we are asked what is the response variable? The last sentence of the story tells us at the end of the semester both groups will be given a test to determine which performed better. Therefore, the response variable would be the test performance. Finally, we're asked in part D, why can't this experiment be conducted with blinding? Remember what blinding is. The definition of blinding would be non-disclosure of the treatment an experimental unit is receiving. Well, both teacher and student must know which form of instruction they are receiving. Even if we wanted to try to do this with blinding, there's no way for a student to not know whether he or she is in an online class or a class with traditional teaching methods. Therefore, this experiment can't be done with blinding. Thank you again for joining us, and that concludes our discussion on the design of experiments.